Good morning, how are you doing? I'm here in Cape Town and it is in the middle of the winter. You can see I've got my jersey on, so it's really cold. I really hope that you enjoy our session today. It's really very meaningful to understand communication, not only for marriage but for all relationships. So I'm really blessed to present this to you, as I'm also really learning so much by presenting this and preparing to lecture this to you. It's really been such an encouragement for me, because it sharpened my skills, and the Word of God said it is more blessed to give than to receive. So by giving you this lecture, I receive so many blessings. I've been married now. I got married in 1993. So I've been married for a long time. I've shared my first story with you. My first wife left me when we were married 20 years old. I was traveling a lot and doing a lot of ministry, and she got involved with an old school friend, and they fell in love, and it led to she leaving me for her old school friend. So I went through a terrible divorce and worked through all those issues. And by God's grace, I got married again, and to a lovely wife, and we've been married now for 11 years. So marriage is very important for me, and by God's grace, I'm back in ministry. I'm involved with so many beautiful people, and marriage is very precious to me, because I understand the dynamic of going through a relationship that breaks up. It's really painful, and understand the pain that children goes through if the parents decide to break up for reasons that is beyond the children's control. My children now have a stepfather who they have not chosen, and they have a stepmother which they have not chosen, and they have to negotiate between two houses. The turmoil that brings to the children is really dramatic, but God's grace has been sufficient for me. My children and I have a beautiful relationship. I've got 3 boys with my first wife, and a beautiful daughter with my second wife. So I really enjoy raising my children. And in the next session, we're going to talk about parenting. So parenting, communication, all these things is very important for us to understand the skills of how do we communicate. It is, how do we take a message that is in us? We have to verbalize the message, and through communicating to the other person, they must receive the same message that we sent. But we all know communication is not just words. It also involves emotions. It involves body language. It involves our worldview. It involves the perception of the person who hears it. Anyone who has been married understands the complexity of communicating, especially if there is disagreement or we don't really hear one another. Then there's cross-cultural communication. I communicate, and my worldview is mainly a Western worldview, but I've also spent years in India and a lot of time in Africa that have influenced my worldview and how I communicate. So all these things is very important when we communicate to our spouse. So through this lesson, we're going to give you some tools that you can practice to become a more effective communicator. And for you as a pastor, communication is so important, because you have to convey the message of God. And how you convey that message is so important, that you connect to the hearts of the people. So my friends, let's dig into lesson number 8 on page 75. The teaching plan, the objectives is to learn practical communication and listening skills to enhance understanding of oneness with your spouse. The key points: genuine communication requires time, trust, commitment, and transparency. Time, trust, commitment, and transparency. Effective listening is a skill that can be learned. That's the great thing. We can learn to be great communicators. And developing empathy. That's a very important word, empathy. When you listen to your spouse, when you listen to your children, do you hear what they are trying to say? And that leads to oneness in marriage. Our key verse is, of course, Genesis 2 verse 24. You will leave your father's house and you will cling to your spouse, and the two of you will become one flesh. So let's begin there with understanding. Understanding. So communication is the lifeblood of a relationship. If we do not communicate, the relationship will suffer. So now remember, in a marriage, there is 3 entities. It's the husband, it's the wife, and then it's the marriage. So the husband stays himself, the wife stays herself, but they enter into a new relationship in marriage. So when the husband is selfish, the marriage relationship suffers. If the husband only lives for himself or does not communicate, the marriage doesn't grow. So it is our duties to put deposits into this relationship so that the relationship can become stronger. There can be more unity. We will never be one, like we will become one person, but we become more and more united. We understand one another. The relationship grows. It's such a beautiful picture of Christ and his bride. John the Baptist said, he must become more and I must become less. So the more you give of yourself, the more you die to yourself and give to the relationship, the stronger the relationship is. This morning I was meditating on that verse where Jesus said, unless the kernel falls in the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears forth many fruit. That's a very important aspect. Unless it falls and dies, it remains alone. Selfish people push people away. Narcissistic people push people away. But if you die, you bear fruit. And unless we die, we stay alone. Loneliness is a sign of years and years of selfishness. You push people away, push people away, push people away. People don't want to be with you because you're so selfish. You live only for yourself. But the more you live for other people, the more people will be drawn to you. And then you will bear fruit. Go and meditate how you can die in your relationship to yourself. Doesn't mean that you disappear, you become a non-person. No, you put the relationship first. And if we get that right in marriage, it's so easier to get that right in our relationship with God. The way we treat our wives is the way we will treat the family of God. The way the wife treats the husband is the way she will treat the family of God. So there's a deep mystery in communication that we really need to understand. To understand the heartbeat. God the Father talks to us. He also communicates with us. So we really need to get this right in order to tap into the lifeblood of our Savior. Only by understanding the other person and what is important for him or her can we begin to connect with that person. Listen very carefully. Only by understanding the other person and what is important to him or her can we begin to connect. Connections. Understanding is the first aspect of genuine communication. Understand them. Understanding is the goal of effective communication. Real communication only takes place when both people move beyond speaking and hearing to understanding. Speaking, I speak to you now. You hear me, but do you understand me? See, there's three aspects: listening, speaking, and understanding. We must understand the gospel, understand one another, communicate that they can understand us. Understanding takes effort. It is not easy or automatic. It involves setting aside your own issues and agenda, what you want, in order to truly appreciate the other person's point of view and feeling. Long-term relationships like marriage require care and work to maintain closeness and understanding. So, number B there, the couple who seeks to understand each other will value what they take for genuine communication to occur. What does it take for genuine communication to occur? Here is a couple of things. The first one is time. Time. If we don't spend time with one another, we will not understand one another. When we first fell in love, we love to spend time. I would take all the extra time I would have get and spend it with my wife. And that built the relationship. So spending time is one of the 5 primary ways we demonstrate love to that person. We give our life. We have 80 years. If I give you 200 hours of my time lecturing you, means I care for you. Means that I invest in your lives. It's a big part of my life that I invest in you guys. Because God compels me. I understand the importance of training people. Because God has given me so much. Same as you spend time with your wife, with your spouse. Not just a few minutes here and there, but focus, quality, undisturbed, one-on-one. Don't put on your mobile phone, put it upside on the table so that you can see the message. You talk. That is not undivided time. When you spend time with your wives or with your spouse, wives with your husbands, put your phone away. Leave it. Spend time. Tell the children, it's now Papa, Mama's time. Father, Mother time. It's now our time. Don't disturb us now. For the next hour or two, it's our time. That's very important. Trust. The barrier of genuine communication will not be overcome unless there is trust between two parties. Trust comes of being authentic and being real. Don't put up a mask. Be real. Be real. If I trust you, I am more likely to communicate deeply with you and listen to what you say. No one wants to be hurt. Things said in confidence, secrets that are exposed, must remain confidential. Nothing can harm a relationship as to betray a trust or expose a confidence. Trustworthiness. Then commitment. Commitment is another aspect of trust. It's you and me forever. It's the two of us. I'm committed to you. As long as I am breathing, I am committed to you. And here it's also to the spouse, to the marriage, and to the idea of marriage. It talks about commitment. You commit to your wife, to your husband. You committed to the marriage and the idea of marriage. There's some important aspects to understand. You are committed to this relationship and the concept of marriage. Keep redefining, improving your marriage, and you will benefit greatly. Supporting each other, working together. If you win, I win. We're a team. We are the team. We are the winning team. There's a story of the author who said you should never use the word divorce. Nothing can destroy commitment by threatening that if you don't do what I want you to do, I will leave you. That is so childish, my friends. We must not do that. We have made a vow. Transparency. Genesis 2 verse 25 says, the man and his wife were both naked and they felt not ashamed. So it is a symbolism of what marriage is. We are totally naked before one another. There's nothing we can hide. Openness, honesty, vulnerability, no secrets. No, we know each other's weakness, we know each other's failures, we know their needs and their fears. That brings us to the levels of commitment, the levels of communication. It's really helpful to understand these levels of communication. Certain things I will communicate to people I don't know. To my friends, I will communicate more. To my close friends, I will communicate even more. But there's certain things that is only between me and my wife. That is the highest level of communication. So what is the first level? That's non-sharing. I don't really get to know anything about you. People will say time heals. It's fair. It's all fair in love and war. What do you mean? Do you tell me anything about me? That's when you stand in a queue on to go on an aeroplane or to travel. We talk to people, but it's just chit chat. It's nothing meaning. We just, how's the weather? Oh, you look lovely. Where are you going? Not really sharing. It's just, we will never meet these people again, so we're just nice people to them. Then, factual communication. That is sharing what you know. You become slightly more transparent on this level. For example, men have bigger hearts than lungs. Women have bigger stomachs, livers and kidneys. It doesn't really tell me about you. It tells me about, you know something. I tell you something about what I know. So just sharing facts. When you share facts with a person, you don't really get to know the person. The next one is you share your opinion. It's not a fact, that is something more personal. Becomes more personal, therefore it's more transparent, and people tend to be more selective with whom they share their opinion. You don't share your opinion about politics to a stranger, or your opinion about your favorite team, or opinions. If you share your opinion with a stranger, they might disagree with you and you will put yourself in an awkward situation. For example, I think that Abraham Lincoln was the best president the United States ever have. I prefer dogs over cats. Then the next level is emotions. Sharing what you feel is approaching transparency, and therefore is generally has to do much more with restricted group of listeners. The Lord himself uses emotional language so that we can understand him. God is a feeling being. He expressed a lot of how he feels. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. So John, God loved the world. That's emotions. So we share our emotions sometimes when we preach. We share our joy, we share our sadness. Then there's transparency. That's the deepest level. Sharing who you are is open, honest and vulnerable. Your deepest thoughts, your pains in life. You have nothing to hide. And that is a safe environment, whether it's good or bad. Only those who have taken the time, established trust and demonstrated commitment are the ones whom a person will be transparent. Your spouse should be the one of those people. People you really trust. So communication, well, you need to determine several things. So here is 5 things you need to determine. The first one is what you want to say. Can you remember, almost like when we're going through preaching again? What, how, why, when and how. So here more effective but more personal. What do you want to say? And then how you want to say it. The tone of your voice, with excitement, sadness, conviction, disappointment and encouragement. So I can tell you, good morning, how are you? Did you have a good day? Or I can say, I had such a bad night last night. I really don't want to sit here. I really like to sleep. That is bringing in some depressive notes. Why do you want to say it? Express love, affection, anger, hurt, or embarrassed with one another to make him or her or aware of your need, desire, belief, dreams. Maybe it doesn't need to be said all. Why do you want to say that? We really need to think very well when we communicate. Sometimes we're in a bad mood. If we have small children, we didn't sleep well. Our loved one can see that. We don't need to bring in depressive, bad emotions and just upset other people unless we want to get the empathy. And then when do you want to say it? That's very important. My wife works, I work, and there's certain things that I cannot share with her after 8, 9 o'clock because we're tired and we might not really understand each other. So it's better to say that on a Saturday morning when we go for coffee somewhere. So when do you want to say it? During a meal, during recreation, at bedtime, in the presence of the children. To choose what you say, how you say it, why you say it, and when you say it. It's important then how and when. How and when you combine those two. When you can something, it's important as what you say and why you say it. In fact, saying something in an appropriate way or at an inappropriate time can cause the other person to misinterpret what you are saying and why you said it. Some skills for you to practice. So then we come to understanding. So we're talking about talking, listening, and now understanding. So understanding includes both the content of what the other person is telling and his or her feelings. So there's more involved than just words or emotions. It also involves our feelings. How do we feel? So communication is both verbal, what we say, and non-verbal. The voice, our tone, our body language. When the verbal and non-verbal do not agree, people tend to believe the non-verbal. That's very important. When people talk to you, they don't look you in the eyes. They talk like this. Don't want to talk to you. How do you go? I feel good. Then the non-verbal, we don't believe them. And here is a very important story in the Bible for us to understand. Remember Elijah? There was a lady who couldn't have a child and he prayed for her. And one day the child went out with his father and the child died. And the mother left the child and she ran and looked for Elijah. And he sent his servant Gehazi. He said, look, that is the lady. Go and ask her. She doesn't look well. So Gehazi, the servant, came and he asked the lady, are you well? Yes, I am well. She tells him, where is Elijah? No, he's there in the mountain. So she came to Elijah and Elijah said, are you well? And the woman said, my child has died, the one you gave me. Two different people asked the woman the same question, but the one understood her. The other was just a stranger. That is the skill we as pastors need to develop with our wives, husbands with our wives. We need to understand, even if she communicates with us and she said, no, all is well. We can see in her eyes, we can see in her emotion, that presence, everything is not well. So practical suggestion for having quality conversation with your spouse, keep eye contact with your spouse when talking. Look her in the eyes. The eyes is the windows of the heart. Is the heart troubled? Is there pain? Is there joy? Is it something for us to celebrate? So don't listen to your spouse and do something else at that time. That's very important. Church members, they can wait. The sermon can wait. Don't be a guy who's always on his phone. That's really so annoying. God doesn't speak to you through your mobile phone. Put it away. Put it away when you're busy with your wife. Give her undivided attention. Listen for feelings. Listen for feelings. That's a skill we need to develop. Listen for the feelings. Observe the body language. Refuse to interrupt. If your spouse is talking to you, don't interrupt them. And while they are talking, thinking about what you want to say. Let them quiet. You keep quiet and let them talk. We have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk. My goal is to understand your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. Then we come to listening. Many people want nothing more than for someone else to care enough to listen to them. I've spent some time with some people, and then they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Oh goodness, they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And then she says, oh, thank you so much for listening. It meant so much. I feel so good. And I just listened. I don't have the answers. Sometimes people's situations is deeply complex. Sometimes really messed up. My goodness, people can really mess up their lives. And then we listen to them. Understand. Real, genuine empathy. That heals them. Especially husbands, we need to listen to our wives. Sometimes our wives get home after work and they just talked. Just talk. They don't want advice, they just want you to listen. They will detox their whole life just by bubbling and bubbling and talking and talking and talking. For them it's important to get home to get all these emotions intact. And by talking to us, they align their emotions. They stabilize and they're ready for the afternoon or for spending time with us. So it's an important skill for us to cultivate. Being a good listener is hard work. Most of us are not good listeners. Most of us want to dominate. We want to take control. And that causes misunderstandings. Listening well is a skill to be learned. So let's look at some types of listening. The first one is pseudo listening. That you pretend to listen and you don't really listen. People will say, did you hear? Yes. What did I say? Oh, I don't know. It's a skill we need to listen, especially our young people. With all the technology, they come up, they read, they look, they work with their fingers, they WhatsApp. But if you talk to them, they have just learned the skill of listening. Then selective listening. You listen, but you also don't listen. You only hear only points of interest. Kids seems to do this really well. You can think that they are paying no attention at all, and words like sex get mentioned and they are all ears. We need to listen carefully, and that is the next one. Protective listening is another one which is not good. We doesn't really hear the message. For the example is a doctor gives a patient bad news. Oh, you've got cancer. You've got 6 months to die. You are going to die. And the only thing they hear is that their weight is good and their blood pressure is good. They don't hear the bad news. I've once, when I was young, we did a play or a game. Before church, everybody greet one another. How are you? And I'm doing well. When it's just a formality, nobody listens. And we greet people. How you do? He said, I'm not doing well. Not I'm doing well, I'm not doing well. And 10-15 people didn't even notice that. They said, oh, I'm glad to hear I'm also doing well. It's just a formality. We don't listen. People, we need to learn how to listen. Listen to our wives. Listen to our members. Listen to the voice of God. Good listening manifests in an altitude that encourage communication. You actually hear and feel what the person has said to you. So here is 3 types of listenings. 3 types of listening based on the listener style. So we looked at types of listening, and now there is more. The first one is competitive and combative listening. This happens when you are more interested in promoting your own point of view than in understanding or exploring somebody else's view. You either listen for openings or to take the floor, or for flaws or weak points in order to attack. As you pretend to pay attention, you are impatiently waiting for an opening. We can all understand and identify this. The other one is passive or attentive. This occurs when you are genuine listening and hearing and understanding the other point of view. We are attentive and passively listening. We assume that we heard and understand correctly, but say passive and don't verify it. So we hear, but we don't verify. And we will come to that next a bit later. Then active and reflective listening. So this is the most single useful important listening skill. You active listening, you are also genuinely listening in understanding what the other person thinks, feels, wants, or what the message means. So think, feel, wanting, or want what the message means. And then there's verification. You give feedback so that the people really understand and you really understand what they say. So here is some skills. Good, active, reflective listening. Good, active, reflective listening. Interesting here, we talk 125 words per minute, but we can actually hear 450, 300 more we can listen than we can talk. So how do we learn to be a good listener? So here is some very important aspects, especially when you do counseling. You really need to understand this. The first one is promote an atmosphere of trust. Promote an atmosphere. Be trustworthy, be genuine, be caring, be honest, be accepting. Shut up and listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them accordingly. Don't interrupt. Resist the impulse of immediately ask or answer the question. Hold your tongue. Remember that women often use conversation to think through a problem and work towards a solution. They need you to listen, not provide a solution. Give up control. We don't need to be in control when we're listening. Practice self-control. So Proverbs say, first seek to understand, then to be understood. Proverbs, a fool finds no pleasure in understanding, but lies in airing his own opinions. Proverbs 18, he who answers before listening, that is folly and shame. So, practice beginning ears. That's a beautiful word. Might not be a familiar term in your language, but it means this is a way of paying attention to the present moment with openness and curiosity. Hearing it for the first time, as you are hearing the story for the first time. And then double check for meaning. How do we do that? There is some 3 aspects. The first one is reflecting back. You reflect back. As I understand it, you are saying this. Do I hear you right? Are you feeling this? Clarifying questions. Are you telling me that? What do you mean by this? Clarifying. Do you understand? Do you understand your feeling? Does the person have the capacity to express their feelings correctly? Then a summary question. Of all you've just said, what do you most want me to understand? What do you need from me right now? Good ways to communicate with our spouse. What do you want, my love? Do I hear this is what you are saying? Then monitor for inconsistencies. Inconsistencies with verbal, voice, body tone, body language may contradict. So look at it. Then be mindful of who it is you are talking to. It is your spouse, your gift of God. It's not your enemy. Treat him or her as your treasure, your love gift from God. This is the daughter of God. This is a son of God. God has given you a gift in your spouse. Treat them as you would treat a princess, and she will blossom. Cultivate patience. Focus on the other person without feeling the need for them to be quick and clear in what they have to say. So what is the benefits of active listening? Listening shows respect. It shows respect. Voice misunderstandings to help a person to spot flaws in their reasoning. What they hear, their words reflected back without criticism. Identifies areas of agreement so that we can identify disagreements. Sometimes when we are disagreeing with our spouse, they are saying things that is good, but we are so angry and we are not actively involved. We don't hear the agreements and the disagreements and differentiate. We just attack them violently because we want to defend ourselves. Listening tends to be open people up and give them the idea that you trust them and they trust you. Listening promotes a more intimate and a warm relationship. That brings us to empathy. This is the last part of this lesson, empathy. There's a real distinction between merely hearing the words and really listening to the message. So when we listen effectively, we understand what the person is thinking and feeling from the other person's perspective. What is their perspective? What are they saying? What are they thinking? Why are they feeling that way? We are in that person's shoes. We live their life. We see things how they see it. Our own viewpoint may be different and we may not necessarily agree with that person. But we listen and we understand and we gain empathy. What is empathy? Empathy has been described as follows, especially as it relates to communication. Number one there, empathy is about spontaneous and naturally turning into the other person's thoughts, feelings, whatever they may be. Empathy is the ability to mutually experience the thoughts, emotions, and experience. It's about effortlessly putting yourself into another person's shoes, yet you maintain your own identity. It leads that you pick up the phone and tell someone you are thinking about them, their situation, even when your own life demands are equally pressing. Just sending a short message to your wife. I love you. I'm thinking of you. I'm missing you. I'm looking forward to spending time tonight with you. Just show care. Listen to the person's voice, especially their eyes. Pick up how they are feeling. Number three, empathy is a defining feature of human relationships. For example, empathy stops you from doing things that would hurt a other person. Empathy makes you bite on your lip. Just keep quiet and listen. Don't defend yourself. Just listen. Empathy it makes real communication possible. You listen to how they feel, how they think. You are able to see things through their eyes. It shows that you are sincere, you're making space for them. Empathy is the glue of a social relationship. It motivates you to find out and care about the other person's experience. It leads you to ask about their problems. Make them feel supported rather than offloading your own difficulties on them. So lastly, empathy is a form of respect and an indication that makes you take the other person seriously. I appreciate your position. I know how you feel. You have to prove it by being willing to communicate with the other person at their level and adjusting your voice, your rate of speech, and the choice of words. To genuinely communicate with your spouse, you really need to understand them, effective listening to them, demonstrating empathy. It's an important part of what it means to become one, as God intended for husbands and wives to be. So here's some good skills, my friends. Work through them. And next time, we will talk about sex and marriage. See you.